Welcome back. Ken and Kirk, I am glad to have you with us. I know there are a lot of people that want to know some things about what Diverse Power did during the Great Ice Storm. And first thing I'd like to do is get each of you to tell me what your job is and a little bit about what you do at Diverse Power. Ken, we'll start with you.
Okay, Randy. I'm Residential Services Marketing Coordinator, and that mainly involves public relations, consumer relations, and education at all levels, everything from conservation in your home to safety demonstrations to kindergartners and first grade students. And we do other things like scholarships and grants and a lot of involvement in the schools, and so I kind of cover that spectrum of public relations and education is mainly what my function is.
So you have to answer those questions when people want to know what's going on, right?
Usually so. That comes to me and I try to answer them. Sometimes I have to call people like Kirk to get technical backup, but usually I try to answer the public information stuff.
Okay. And Kirk, tell us a little bit about what you do.
I'm manager of construction and maintenance at Diverse Power. I oversee the day-to-day operations as far as the construction and retirement, as well as the maintenance of all substation and right-of-way equipment.
So you're the one who has to go out there and put it all back up when it gets knocked down?
I am part of a team that coordinates that effort.
Okay. Well, let me ask you now, we're talking about the ice storm, of course, that we had at the end of January. As we look back at that, how did y'all prepare for that event, or really could you prepare for such an event? What did y'all do to get ready for that? And I think you told me Kirk's probably going to answer a lot of these, whoever wants to answer.
Yeah, I'll answer a little bit about my side of that, Randy, and then Kirk can speak to his side. From the public relations and information side, we do prepare quite heavily. We of course watch the weather like everybody does, and as you mentioned before the show, you know, sometimes you want to say, well, that's not really going to happen, but unfortunately in our business, we have to assume that it may happen, but we have to give the weather people the benefit of the doubt, and we do try to prepare for such an event. And the way that we do that, from my perspective, we have a generation and transmission cooperative based in Tucker, Georgia, and we have a legislative and public type information company, GEMC, Georgia Electric Membership Corporation, that's also based in Tucker. And they coordinate at a statewide level information and public information and outage information. They want us to be ready to, they even go to as much detail as to give us a schedule as to when to call them with information about the outage so that they can relay that information to broadcast companies and media. And then at the local level, we do the same thing. We are constantly in contact with media of all kinds, radio, TV, and those kinds of contacts are necessary, and we enjoy those contacts, and we do that in advance to let people know that, hey, we want you to know who we are and we know who you are, and in the event of such an outage as we had with the ice storm, then we immediately begin talking with them. As a matter of fact, as early, usually our first contact on a daily basis is at 4:15 a.m. with Georgia Electric Membership Corporation in Tucker so that they can communicate to their media contacts. And then a little later on in the morning, then I began contacting local media. So in that sense is where I prepare. From a information standpoint is what my main role is in a situation like this. In addition to, once I get a break from that, then I try to help answer the phones as well. And then Kirk pretty much picks it up from there on the restoration side.
Okay, so you're trying to tell people, you're getting people ready for what's going to happen, trying to let them know, and then Kirk's people start getting ready for what they've got to do. Kirk, what do y'all do to get ready?
Well, honestly, the preparedness for a storm to come in starts well before the storm event is even known. The right-of-way system and the maintenance of the right-of-way system is a big benefit to keeping power going. Keeping our equipment up to date, making sure everything's operating properly, that's day-to-day operations to allow us to restore service in a timely manner. Then the GEMC, the Georgia Electric Membership Corporation that Ken spoke of, is a coordination effort throughout the state of Georgia, not only through the media, but it's also a coordination as far as manpower. They coordinate the manpower throughout the state and try to identify cooperatives that it will bring help in to us, and I stay in constant contact with them throughout the day, night, throughout the entire event, so that we may bring in help as we need it, and as we did, and it's a good system that works well.
One question, and all this is starting to happen, and you've got your thing done, you're kind of getting ready. When did y'all realize how bad this was going to be? When did y'all really realize that this was a major event?
Well, from my standpoint, Randy, Friday night when we came, we had been out to dinner and around town to run a few errands. Friday night when I came in, and my daughter's car was covered in ice by 11 p.m. on Friday night, I told my wife, I said, I think the weather people were right. Mm-hmm. Even that early, I did not realize the magnitude of it. And I think when I realized it was Saturday morning when my power had already gone out, and I went ahead and got up and started getting ready to come into work. And when I went out the back door and heard trees, not just limbs, I heard trees falling up behind my house, then I knew then that we potentially had a major outage, but I was not certain. I always had that faint hope that, well, maybe it's not too bad. I told my wife, I said, this was probably about 6:30. I said, I'll be back home about 10 after I call the media and let them know what's going on. But of course that didn't happen.
But it didn't work that way,
right?
did it?
And then I think Kirk was actually up earlier than I was, so I let him give you his point of view on it.
As far as when we knew the severity of the storm, we have a new system that's in place. It's called TWACS. You kind of make an opinion based on what you're seeing, but the TWACS system allows us to have true technology and true information as far as the amount of consumers that are actually out. Mm-hmm. The TWACS system is based on the metering package that we've been installing throughout our entire system that the consumers, I think, most of, if not all, are aware of. We can check data as far as communication with that meter on an hourly basis, and we can check data every hour over a 24-hour period. Mm-hmm. What we did with the system was we went in and identified a certain hour within the day that we wanted to look at. At 10 o'clock in the morning of Saturday, 10 a.m., we had roughly 17,000 consumers without power. Mm-hmm. As the storm progressed and as we would restore service to an area, of course, it would get knocked back down.
Get hit again.
Within that 24-hour period, we had 19,000 consumers that were affected.
And out of how many total consumers do you have?
Approximately 27,000.
So well over half of them.
Well over half.
At one time were down.
Yes,
That's
sir.
that's amazing. Now, the next question I had for you: how do you prioritize your work when something like this happens? What do your crews start doing? I know you can't just run out and start turning people's power on. You got to go to a substation. You got to get certain things on in order. How do you prioritize that work?
The system allows us to go through and identify by a substation and a circuit how many consumers are off within that station and circuit. Pretty much the way we do it is we identify 17,000 consumers, just to use this as an example. The 17,000 consumers were projected onto a screen based on location as a road and address reference, and as well as substation and circuit. We identified which station, which circuits had the most consumers out, and that's obviously where we went first. Mm-hmm. We kept a running total. We check the meters 3 times a day. That's how the system operates, and it collects the previous 8 hours of data. We would take the freshest data, and it would give us a total number of consumers that were out within a circuit. We would move crews into that area.
So what you're saying, and I think this is a good point people probably need to know, just because I didn't see a diverse power truck in my neighborhood didn't mean that you didn't know I didn't have power. You were already able to view that some way and knew that my power was off without somebody having to come out physically into the neighborhood.
Within the confines of a major storm, day-to-day outages, consumers need to call that in. As far as a major storm event, we are constantly around the clock checking that information, restoring the information that, up-to-date information, and we are identifying who is still out. Mm-hmm. It's a very good system, but the thing to remember is day to day, we don't collect that data. You have to go out and ask the system for that information. If we just went in and started collecting data, as I said, we collected every 8 hours. the outage may be 8 hours old. So naturally, our consumers on day-to-day operation, they need to call in.
Yeah.
During a major storm event, we honestly know who is still out.
Yeah. Well, now, how many people did y'all have working during the peak time? I know you had your crews and some other folks, but how many people do y'all actually have out trying to get people's power back on?
In the field, I would say we were somewhere in excess of 100 people in the field. We brought in crews from Mitchell EMC, and that was coordinated through GEMC, as well as crews from north of Atlanta. Pike had brought in some, I had called and got some crews in from there. Some of the Pike crews actually came from Florida, some came from South Georgia as far as the people's hometowns. We typically have, normal practice, we have about 27 people in-house that operate under the construction area. We went to over 100, in excess of 100 in the field, restoring service to consumers.
Okay. We're down to just a couple of minutes to go. One thing I wanted to ask you, did you learn anything from this one that may help you prepare for the next one?
I hate to keep referring back to the new system, but the old system was paper. We based everything on the number of consumers calling. There was a single individual, generally the person who is over construction and maintenance, who goes through and prioritizes it based on knowledge alone. With the new system, we're progressively, through the 2 hurricanes, we got better. The first one, we still used paper. The second hurricane that came through, we actually got into using the TWACs a little more to verify. With this one, we use this system, this storm, to identify the entire system. And I think the use of technology and the use of our manpower and labor hours, we're learning every day.
Yeah.
And we're learning to adapt to the technology.
We've got just maybe a minute left to go. Ken, have you got any other comments, anything maybe I didn't touch on or something you'd like to tell the consumers out there?
Yes, Randy, I would. We encourage consumer interaction 365 days a year. We are owned by our members, and we appreciate our members, and we appreciate the opportunity to bring them electric service, and we just appreciate, especially in a situation like this, their patience and understanding. The vast majority of the consumers understood. Many of them had been through such an outage before. They knew what may lie ahead, and they were very appreciative, and we honor that and cherish their respect of what we're trying to do. We have to operate under tremendous safety guidelines, and that sometimes slows our process down. We have safety guidelines. We have things like we have wet terrain to deal with. We have trucks getting stuck. There's a lot of obstacles to restoring power in a situation like that, but we always do the very best we can, and we do it as quickly as we can, and we prioritize, like Kirk mentioned, to get the high density areas, to try to get the most people back on as soon as we can. But we are continually amazed at how understanding and patient people are and how appreciative they are of what we do. And we just want to say thank you to them for that. And as always, we want to mention safety as well. Yeah. Do not go in the vicinity of downed power lines, down trees that are in contact with power lines. Do not try to remove trees from power lines. Just